NC State is obviously on a very historic, unprecedented run, possibly part 2. Who better to hear from than someone who's been here before?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers can join today and get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Happy Thursday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We have a very, very special guest joining us today, so you really don't want to listen to hear us blabber. We have to get the man of the hour on the program. Let's do this thing. We now welcome extremely special guest, 1983 champion Thurl Bailey. Mr. Thurl, can you believe what we are witnessing right now for NC State basketball?
Of course I believe. Come on, man. Who do you think you're talking to here? I, of all people, along with a special group who has been there, if you don't believe, you don't belong. And so, as we look back 41 years ago, that's how far back you want to go when we achieved something that really no other team had achieved in that way at that time. I think it's about time. And it just so happens that my alma mater is up to it again. And those are great stories, regardless of who it is. But obviously it's special for us because it's the Wolfpack.
This has got to feel like if the 72 Dolphins were watching the Dolphins next year go undefeated and get to that kind of Super Bowl, because it's kind of the exact same thing and in the exact same way. Do you find it odd at all how many, because me personally, I find it a little eerie how many direct correlations or very similar moments to what things were going on and happening in 83 that created the magic of that run now being recreated right now?
Ken, you're a football guy, and I expected some football analogies, so thank you for those. But you're right. It's the same, right? It's a team sport. And that allows for things like this to happen. There's a lot of correlations, obviously. Of course, it's a different time and kind of a different game with different elements around it. With the transfer portals and NILs and all that kind of stuff involved. But still, the game of basketball is, especially collegiate basketball, is still a great game, and it's a great competition. And it was probably about the time when we came along the scene. You might be able to go back to Magic and Larry Bird and say, well, that era started March Madness, right? That kind of competition. But when you have a group of guys who aren't really on the map to start with, and, all analytics aside, we find our way to get to the Final Four and then pull off what we did. It's a special journey. And as much as people want to look at the final game against us in Houston, I think the more important part is to understand how the journey started and how we got to the ultimate goal.
Now, you mentioned that, you did believe that this team could do this, but 1983, obviously, maybe the original Cinderella in the eyes of many. You and your teammates, did you ever imagine that someone else would possibly recreate something close to what you had, let alone another team from NC State?
Well, I think you always hope for that, right? Because if you live something like that and you understand how folks who are on the outside looking in gravitate towards those kind of stories and those kind of journeys. They want that in their lives. They want that. I don't care what they do in their lives, what occupation they have. We all want that ultimate goal, right? Whatever that is. And we all read books about it. We all read books about the hero and someone who has come from obscurity and has done something really special. So that's what sport does. It helps people connect with that in their own lives. So it's kind of a microcosm. But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know if I could have ever imagined that NC State, I always hoped that State could get back there sooner than now. I was going to hope, obviously, that someone day it would be my alma mater. It would be somewhere where I'm familiar with, somewhere that helped me grow up as a man. And so, yeah, I mean, the thing about the NCAA Final Four and the whole March Madness thing is that anything can happen. Anything. You just got to get there, right? If you're not in the dance, you don't have a chance to wear the glass slipper, right? So that is why it is so special now, because there are some eerie correlations between what happened with us 41 years ago and what's happening now with Coach Keats' team.
You know what? You probably should have just picked a lower number to wear, and it would have happened sooner, because
41, baby.
The 41 lines up exactly with your number as well. You know, I'm just saying, you know, and let me ask you this, because we have a lot of feelings and emotion about this as the fans and what that looks like and all that. And I tell people all the time, my biggest regret was never winning a championship at NC State when I played here, because that, as an athlete and a competitor, that's the biggest thing, right? Like the individual awards are cool and all that, but a championship is where it's at. What did you and the guys feel as you were going along that run? What was kind of the thought from game to game with that group?
Well, before I answer that question, Ken, I'm going to tell you that you shouldn't have a regret that you didn't win a championship. What you should be proud of is the journey it took you as far as it did and the things you learned, right? Because it wasn't up to you alone, right? I mean, it wasn't up to you to win a championship. And yeah, I understand in sports, if you don't get to the top, there's a sense of maybe being incomplete. But for me, the journey was just as important. If we had lost in the Final Four, even before we got there, I mean, I would cherish everything that I learned from Coach Valvano. All my teammates, we'd still be on a text chain today, because you never lose that, championship or not, you know. But to have the ability to go beyond expectations, right, and then reach the pinnacle, the highest point, is very special. And so once you've done that, you're always considered a champion in your life. I don't care what level you win a championship, you always have that as part of your resume. So yeah, you know, in answer to your question, there was a point in there where we struggled, and I don't think we would have even had an opportunity to figure out who we were unless we didn't struggle along the way. There was a lot of them. Wittenberg breaking his foot against Virginia. Right. My coach who recruited me, Norm Sloan, leaving after my first freshman year. I didn't know what to do. I was going home. I called my mom and said, "Mom, Coach Sloan left. I'm coming home." You know what she said to me? "Son, you may be going somewhere, but you definitely ain't coming here." So that right there was a decision. I had to make a decision on what I was going to do. And I stayed, in part because of some unknown coach coming in and with all this confidence and telling us he knew he was going to win a championship, as he introduced himself as Jim Valvano. And we didn't owe him anything. He didn't recruit us. And so he didn't know, and we didn't owe him anything. But he got us to buy in. He got us to stay on task. And the rest is history.
Yeah, just another striking similarity, right? Coach Valvano comes in and he talks about the fact that we're going to do this thing. And Kevin Keats comes in, and in his opening press conference, he says, "One thing I need y'all to know is Kevin Keats is a winner." And you know, to see those two both call their shots, and now obviously, Coach Valvano, God rest his soul, he obviously hit his shot. And now Coach Keats is looking at that very, very same opportunity before him now. It almost gives you chills to think about.
It does. And let's be honest. If Virginia makes a free throw, he might not have a job.
Yeah.
He might not have a job. Right? Yeah. Let's be real. So as good a man as he is, and as great a coach as he is in the locker room, sometimes it's about the right time, the right place, things happening to other teams that send them home and keep you in the game. And some things you don't have any control over, right? So that's why I'm really excited because of those kind of stories, because of that man who I know is a really, really good man. And he's done a lot of good for that program there, even especially in the tough years where, you don't know where you're going to be the next year, whether they're going to give up on you or keep you on. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many elements in this that we're talking about that sometimes things just you have to take risks and you have to chance it and see what happens.
Quick ad read from our sponsors before we continue our chat with NC State legend Thurl Bailey. Our first sponsor of the day is FanDuel. The April sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action. That's because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right, $200 that you can use to bet on the NCAA Tournament, MLB, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, Big T, you mentioned this group text. I'm glad you mentioned it because I was going to ask about it anyway. We've seen tweets from Terry Gannon about this famous group text. What has been the vibe over the course of March between your former teammates?
It's been a pretty constant vibe, high energy vibe, and just know that we have that text chain going all year long.
Right.
And we get topics. We have text topics from politics to disasters to wars. I mean, it's great to have the guys engage with each other on so many things. But this time of the year, it's always special for all of us. And Absolutely. So as things started to build more and more and more, and the ACC tournament comes about and state goes through that in amazing fashion, it starts to get a lot more chatter. Sometimes I have to mute it or turn it off because I'm in a meeting or something. I'd be tempted to pick it up and look at it, but it's always fun to see what the guys are thinking and saying and where they are. There were a few of my teammates in Dallas, and Coach Keats had them come in and talk to the team there. So it's always good when I can't be there in person to be able to catch up with everybody.
And we saw that you ran into Sidney Lowe, was it Tuesday evening when the Cleveland Cavaliers met up with the Utah Jazz. What was the buzz, seeing Sidney at a time like this?
Well, I think we knew we'd see each other. A lot of times Sid doesn't come out. As a broadcaster myself, I'm running all over the place. So right. I have to go upstairs and downstairs, and I hadn't seen him yet. Normally we can see each other when the players are out there shooting around during their specific times, but Sid doesn't come out until like right before the national anthem. Mm-hmm. So I felt like when I got done with my open, I'm running around like Jimmy V was doing on the championship, running around looking for Sid. It's like, Sid, where are you? I went down by their bench, and all of a sudden he calls my name and walks up and just gives me an amazing embrace. And I told him I loved him, and he said he loved me. And he knew what time it was, and we both gave each other the sign. And it's always good to see these guys in person. And Sid and I get to do it a couple of times a year, him with the Cavaliers and me with the Jazz.
Yeah, and I think one of the more amazing things about this run, and it's almost like you got to avoid the similarities and the connections and the things here. Since Jimmy V's birthday of March 10th, The men's and women's basketball team are a combined 15-1 since that day of March 10th. It is something that, you know, it's hard to fathom. And I'm gonna let Grayson take it away here because, you know, normally Grayson's the crier, but this moment and the talk that we've had today have got me, you know, me and Grayson are switching roles today. So I'm gonna let him take it away before things get out of hand on my end.
Well. No, but Big T, I want to roll this back quickly to the ACC tournament because one of the similarities between these runs is it is believed that the 83 team also had to complete the entire ACC tournament run with the championship to make it into the dance. What was the feel in the locker room going into the ACC tournament? Did everyone feel like it had to be championship or bust?
You know, you say may have, might have. The point is we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know whether we were going to make it or not. So, you know, the odds may or may not. We had a good strength of schedule that year.
Right.
But we didn't want to go off that. Our belief was if we sealed the ACC tournament championship, we would be in automatically. So that was our goal. Right? Our goal wasn't to hope and believe. Our goal was to go out and try to win this thing. So there'd be no question about it. So in hindsight, nobody knows whether we would have made it or not. Yeah, I mean, our feeling at that time was, you know, we had a decent season. We had a rough patch in there when Derek broke his foot against Virginia in Reynolds. And then he came back against Virginia at Virginia. But in between that time, some magical things happened. Some really nice things happened I can tell you when he broke his foot that a lot of us thought our season was done. That was a big piece of who we were. Derek was just a huge part of that. And so not to discount any of the other guys, but who knew? Who knew that Ernie Myers would step up and be this smooth freshman off the dribble and be able to do what he did? Who knew that Lorenzo Charles would take that next step up and, you know, George McClain would come into his own and TG would step up. And, you know, it was just a time where guys grew up, you know, guys grew up and stepped in and played their roles. And so it was a growth period for us. And we ended the season pretty well, especially after Derek came back. But we didn't know whether it was enough or not. So here we are going into the tournament.
You talk about me being a football guy and the similarities and analogies here. Football went through a very similar thing last year when everybody who lined up at safety got hurt. And because so many guys got hurt, like you talked about, the young guys who you did not expect, nobody saw Sean Brown coming in the way that he did at the end of last season. And now he's transitioning into linebacker and all that stuff in the spring game. But you're right in that sometimes those moments that look catastrophic are a great opportunity, right? And that opportunity opens the door for the less heralded guys to then step into a bigger role and fill out that bigger role that they might not have been able to otherwise.
That's right. Well, you got to step into that door, right? Opportunity there. One, you got to recognize it. Two, you have to be prepared for it. You can't see an opportunity and all of a sudden try to get yourself together.
Right.
It's difficult times that hopefully make you stronger. For some people, they bail out. But if you've got a great leader, you got a guy like Jimmy V and his staff that constantly trusted the upperclassmen, trusted me, Sid, and Whit to be those leaders when he wasn't there, to be leaders when we were on the court. Because he can't play the game. We got to go out and play. And so all those things kind of have to come together. And then, you know, at some point the chips fall where they may. And then you're right, opportunities happen. You prepare yourself, and then there's certain things that happen. You know, people call it luck. Well, luck you have to earn. You have to prepare for. And when you do the right thing, then sometimes the luck swings your way. That whole memory of all those things that happened to us and for us. It's 41 years, guys. Come on. We're still talking about this.
Right.
You said we closed out the season well. I'm like, I don't think you close out the season any better than y'all did. I don't think there's any better way to close it out. But no, I 1,000% agree on that front.
I have a couple more 1983 questions before we hit you with some 2024.
What year were you guys born?
95.
Yeah, we were both born in 95.
Oh, you weren't even around then, huh?
So no, the bald head fools people. The bald head fools people a lot, but I'm only 28.
All we've ever had to go off is stories like these. And so to see what we're seeing now, that's why I cry so much. I truly cannot believe that all these years of waiting is finally playing out in front of us here. Okay, so a couple more 1983 questions. One, a little bit of a fun one. We won't tell on you. Wittenberg to Lorenzo Charles, pass or shot? Uh-oh.
This is what Derek Wittenberg gave all of us the last time we were together.
That is incredible.
So the story behind this is these are pieces of the floor that we won the championship on at Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are actual pieces of the floor at Pitt. And we get there, and Derek Wittenberg has these made for us. And, of course, he's going to put pass. He's going to keep pass till the day he dies. I can tell you that one of my teammates or more have since got a plaque and put shot on it and put it over the word pass. So, yeah, that's a fun one to always talk about. I know what Whit would say, but I think everybody in the world but him knows that it was a shot. And I had to get on him, too, because he talks about the pass that got to him for that. And he calls it a poor fundamental pass.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That's a baseball pass.
Yeah.
Got past the hands. I mean, Benny Andrews tipped it, but that pass, how else was I supposed to pass it?
Yeah.
That's the only pass you could make to have that kind of velocity. And thank goodness Benny Andrews didn't steal it, or he would be in this bottom frame here talking to you guys about them winning the national championship.
I don't know if we'd have him on this program.
There you go.
One more 1983 question, and perhaps this is where I'm going to have to grab the tissues here. If Coach Valvano was here to witness what the 2024 team is doing, what do you think he would say?
Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? Let me tell you something. I was in Sacramento the other day. We had a NBA game to call, and I was right in the middle of the game, calling the play, dunk on the broadcast, and I looked at my phone, and it was Pam Valvano Strasser calling me, Coach V's widow. And that particular night, the Wolfpack had punched their ticket to the Final Four. So I knew why she was calling me, but I couldn't answer the phone. We had a timeout. I picked it up and called her back, and her and her husband were on the phone. And I almost broke down right there on my broadcast just because it just took me back. It took me back to that family that we had, that Coach Valvano built and started. You know how he would be. He would be so proud.
Oh, yeah.
He would be so proud of these guys. And, he would burst through the locker room, hopefully with Coach Keith's permission, and just start going off on these guys like he went off on us right before the championship game. He was telling the press, for the last 2 days that, hey, this is a tough team we're playing. We may not shoot the ball till Monday. Of course, we didn't have a clock back then, so we could have held it with the lead. And he came in with us and he said, guys, you think we're going to hold this bleeping ball? You're out of your mind. And so he was so charismatic. He was the real deal. And so, he is going to be there. I'm going to say that right now because this guy's spirit, this guy's legacy continues to live on through me, through you, through a lot of people who understood who he was, not just through the championship in basketball. That was something that put him on the map. But he was meant to do a lot more, not just through life, but through his passing. And what the V Foundation has done is an amazing thing. So, yeah, Coach V would be he would be so excited. He would be jumping up and down and probably running around on the court again just to relive that moment.
You wouldn't expect anything less.
No.
One more quick ad read before we close out our discussion with champion Thurl Bailey after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is the destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. Whether it's the Final Four for the NCAA tournament or MLB season opening up, you're going to want to have an Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV has recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from all of your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well for all of you chefs out there. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, well, you should. Trust us on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Last couple minutes here with our amazing episode here with Thurl Bailey, 1983 NC State champion. We're now going to transition the conversation to this year's team, this incredible run in 2024. Big T, how much have you gotten to watch of this team, and perhaps who's been your favorite player? I think I might have an answer, but I want to hear from you.
Well, with my NBA schedule and traveling with the team and broadcasting, there were a lot of nights during the course of the season that I wasn't able to watch. But
sure,
as the season kind of wound down, I did catch a few games before the ACC tournament. And then I watched a few of the ACC tournament games when they were making that run. And I did consciously want to watch the NC State Marquette game. I had a dog in the fight, but also my son, who played there for a couple of years under Steve Wojciechowski, went there too. So it was kind of a friendly, friendly thing that went on at home that we were trying to pick who was winning. We were trying to fill out our brackets and see who we were going to pick. But of course, I had NC State.
The house divided thing don't always work out so smoothly. You know, my last ex-girlfriend was a UNC grad. Now, that 39-20 game, the house was silent. It was so silent you could hear a rat piss on the cotton ball. It was dead silent in that house.
Well, hopefully that's not why she's your ex.
Fair enough.
Tell us, Big T, who's been your favorite player to watch over this magical NC State run?
Oh, that's simple. That's DJ Burns.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's the anchor of that team right now. And look, they've got a lot of talent around him, but for him to possess what he has in basketball, he's one of my favorites because he's really kind of a throwback player.
For sure.
Right. I've gotten to the next level where I played in the NBA, and I've seen that evolve, and I call games now. I hardly ever see the ball go into the post nowadays. But a guy who has those kind of skills and that kind of confidence, regardless of who's down there, even if he's in trouble, he understands, and he's calm and patient enough to be able to know what to do with it and how to kick it out and get his other teammates. He makes his teammates better. And so I think he's a darling of the nation right now, I believe.
You know, oddly enough, one of the players that you cover regularly, Lauri Markkanen, was the guy who marked that change in the game for me, because I was watching them play. Somebody's like, he's a three. I'm like, he's not a three. He's 7 feet tall. What are we doing? He's not a three. They're like, yeah, that's what he plays. That's how he plays. And I was just like, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. I watched a couple of games. I'm like, oh, he is a three. Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's evolved. But I think, a coach like Coach Keats understands how to use his players, understands how to put them in a position to thrive. And V was like that too, because I was out there really as a three. and Cozell McQueen at center and Lorenzo Charles at power forward. So, yeah, I think a lot of times that's what it comes down to, is how to go out and execute and use the talent you have on both sides of the ball to get the most out of them. And State has just done that masterfully.
As a TV game analyst with the Utah Jazz, being very involved in sports media, what's it been like seeing NC State getting this much national coverage over the last 3 weeks?
Oh, it's been great. It's been fantastic. They deserve it. And, you know, that has a trickle-down effect, right? That's why we're on this today.
Absolutely.
Is because of what they're doing. It's about history. It's about legacy. It's about achievement. And, you know, it's about, for us as young college students, it opened my eyes in particular about what we really were doing that had nothing to do with the game. We were drawing in people who were looking for hope.
Yep.
We were drawing in people that were looking for something to attach themselves to that was kind of an amazing story, a feel-good story. We need those kind of stories. And so I'm sure this is similar to what this team is going through. They're starting to understand that there's some things bigger than basketball, and they're helping that to grow. And look, there's 3 other teams that are vying for the same prize, right? And they have 3 great stories themselves. But I have a connection with this team, with the Wolfpack, and that's why it is such a amazing story that's growing on people all over the world, really. I mean, you think it's just in our country, but no. It's with social media now. We didn't have social media back then, right?
Right.
We didn't have all the things that these kids have, the cell phones, the instantaneous stardom, if you will. And so I think they need to enjoy it. They need to enjoy it and take this thing as far as they can go. And hopefully that's being crowned the champion.
You know, if they did have that, don't worry, Thurl. I would have been around to make you some sick edits at that time. You know, I'm the edits guy for Locked On Wolfpack. So yeah, you would have had, you know what I mean, every hook, every crossover, every dunk. I would have got you. I would have had you out on front center.
Yeah, you put the music behind it too.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The latest one with the forget your big 3, it's just big me. You know, I mean, you know, I'm not saying it wasn't Grace's work, but, you know, I mean, I took a heavy hand in that one shot.
I like it.
Now, looking forward to this weekend, obviously NC State has a daunting task against Zach Edey and Purdue here in the Final Four. In 1983, you guys had to deal with several big men of your own. Of course, Ralph Sampson, Hakeem Olajuwon. What would your advice be to NC State this weekend against 7'4" Zach Edey?
Well, they're worrying too, right? Those other teams are, I mean, you're in the dance. You're in the Final Four. You got there just like they did.
Right.
So it's not about you having to worry about them as much as it is you just having to go out and play. Nobody thinks you can do it. Nobody thought you could get that far.
Exactly.
So there's got to be an element with those other teams that are saying, look, everything's even right now. You may look at the stats and the probabilities and, the money ball, however you want to look at the game, but it's not like it hasn't been done before. So, right. These guys these NC State guys are playing on adrenaline. They're playing a game they love. They have determination. And sometimes on the other side of the coin, if things look really good on paper for you, you can come in overconfident, right? I actually think that may have happened a bit to Houston after they played Louisville. They didn't think it was going to get any tougher than that.
Right.
And from the looks of it, from my viewpoint, I would have agreed. Wow, looking at that game, watching them dunk on each other, we weren't like that. We weren't built that way. So we had to figure out our own way and how we play and kind of bring them down to that level, if you will, because it wasn't going to look like the one we just saw in the semifinals with them in Louisville. So, yeah, I don't think at that point you start worrying. I think at that point you just stay with your strategy. The coach has a game plan for you. As a player, you have to go out and make sure you're an impactful player of that game, that you're not going out and drawing 2 or 3 fouls early in the game. You got to manage it as a team. And so State has as good a chance as anybody to win that title.
Last question here for Big T before we get you out of here. You've been so gracious for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you or any of your 1983 teammates have plans to make the trip to Phoenix to witness potentially another historic finish?
Yes, I know that Terry Gannon and his wife are going to be driving from California to Phoenix to watch the semis.
Yeah, Terry tweeted, "My bags are packed," and I about lost it. Yeah.
And I have a couple of games. Jazz have a couple of games against the Clippers and the Warriors this coming weekend. If the Wolfpack were able to get through and get to the championship, I'm definitely going to be there. Definitely going to be there.
Big thank you again, Mr. Thurl Bailey, 1983 national champion. This has been an incredible run, the run of a lifetime for guys like Kenton and I and everyone else, 41 years old and younger. We have no idea how to deal with what we've been watching, but it has been nothing short of pure magic. Thank you so much for joining us today. We can't wait to get to this weekend. I'm sure you and your teammates are also anxiously waiting to see NC State back in the Final Four. We can't believe it either, but thank you so much for coming on with us. We're ready for this thing. We're ready to end this thing with another title.
I appreciate it, guys. It's going to be fun to watch this team continue to achieve. And you guys make sure that you send me your address so I can send you my book about this team. You're going to learn things about the players on our team we talked about that you never knew before. And so I'd like for you to get this. And it talks about, how NC State won the championship and how you and your team can choose Kenton to be champions, because even if you don't have a ring on your finger, even if you weren't able to celebrate as a team, you're still a champion, bro. Appreciate you guys having me on. And of course, let's go Pack. Let's do this thing, baby. Let's do it.
Go Pack.